What's up, y'all, and welcome to Durag Thoughts. My name is Trevor Went. I'm a visual artist raised in Virginia Beach, Virginia. I make art to challenge perspectives and give hope to the marginalized and oppressed. And the second season of Durag Thoughts has been all about and centered around my project, the series City of God, and it is closed now. You've all seen the last episode of the series, and I hope that it has challenged you. Something that I hope you come back to time and time again and really dive into the story. And today we are also closing out Durag Thoughts, the whole series for season 2. We're not closing out the whole Durag Thoughts forever because there's going to be season 3, season 4, all them different things. But we're closing out season 2 with the final episode of the season. And my guest for today is a person that I'm going to talk to about what it took to create the musical vision of this. So it only makes sense that y'all meet the genius, the extraordinaire, TaeeTheProducer, TaeeTheProducer Jackson. And we're going to talk a little bit about just how we got here, the process behind it, and really just talk about some of the different moments in the highs, the lows, the challenges, just whatever comes naturally in our conversation. So it should be pretty dope. I appreciate y'all listening through this season of Durag Thoughts. And if this is the first episode you're tuning in, you should go back to the beginning and go through the project City of God. Use Durag Thoughts as a space to kind of journey through the project with and hear some of the stories and conversations surrounding it. And yeah, enjoy. But let's get to it. Tay, what's up, dog? Appreciate
What's going on, folks?
Hey, cuz. Yo, appreciate you taking the time to be here to function with me, to do this. So, first of all,
wait. You said function?
Yeah, function, cuz.
Okay. We out here functioning. We outside.
Outside?
we in.
No, we inside.
We inside.
We inside. It's a whole pandemic.
We inside. It is. It is, man.
But yeah.
Go ahead.
So I wanna kind of go to the beginning of the inception of me and you working together for COG. So we talked about this a little bit before we went online for this, but it was a couple years back. I don't remember how many Thanksgivings ago. It's had to be at least 3. Because it'll be, I mean, at this moment, it's not Thanksgiving, but by the time people see this, Thanksgiving will have long passed. But it was like 3 Thanksgivings ago, and I was talking to you about how I had this vision for this project. And for people who've been paying attention, COG has been a project that I've been thinking about for like 5 years. And so I was talking to you about this concept for this record that I was thinking, and it was going to be scored. And I gave you kind of like, I was thinking about, like, I was like, yo, I heard this project from Levi the Poet, and this project like had this like scoring element to this like creative, this creative body of like spoken word poetry. And I'm like, I want to do something like this. And I remember like you had looked up, like you like, I was just kind of talking to you like conceptually about, yo, this is what I'm thinking, just because you did music. I was thinking about something musical, but I wasn't, like, I knew that you were kind of in the lane of a hip hop producer. And I remember you were like one night I like woke up the next day, you were on the couch and you were talking about, I like looked up some stuff on scoring last night. And when I first kind of thought through the concepts of this record, there's a homie out here in Virginia that I had talked to that I met like early in my college years when I would come back home and go to Bible studies and stuff like that at his church, who plays drums, produces, does a bunch of stuff like that. And me and him had talked about potentially doing this project together, and it was like going to be like 10 tracks, and he had like quoted me a price and everything. And and I was still trying to like hone in the whole project, but I think like that moment when you had talked about stuff also planted a seed in me to think about, okay, would I do this thing with Tay or would I do this thing with Mark? And was really beginning to play that out in my head. So what do you remember about that is not a COVID cough. Me and Tay already talked about how I was gonna have to explain this to people. I got this nigga. I was gonna have to explain this to people. I get sick when I go to sleep and it's cold in the house, and people been wilding at the house and turning the heat off in the middle of the night, and so it happened enough times to the point where I have this like lingering like little cough, but this ain't a COVID cough. But anyways, Tay, what do you remember about just that kind of opening concept talk about scoring and things like that? What do you remember about that time, however many holidays ago it was, where we chopped it up about that stuff?
Nothing.
I'm telling you, this nigga don't want a podcast.
No, like for real, I remember you told me about it. And in the back of my mind, I'm just sitting there like, scoring? What is that? Like for real, I was like, I know about it. You know, we know, for me, I know when I think about scoring, I think about, you know, movie soundtracks. And like the joints that like carry us like through our like childhoods, you know, like the ones we always go back to. I remember the first one that came to my mind was the one that always stands out to me. It's from BioShock. Random joint, but I found it in high school because of a friend. He was like, "Yo, you gotta check this out. It's just crazy." And I listened to it, and ever since then, it stuck with me. And so I'm thinking stuff like that, but I'm like, scoring? What that mean? You know what I mean? So I looked up some stuff that night. When you saw me when I was, you know, I was knocked out on the couch. That was a good sleep. Real good sleep. But like I was, cause you know, you had my brain going. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, let me look up some stuff. And I remember I typed in hip hop scoring or something like that. Cause I ain't know what to type in. All the stuff I saw was like I remember I saw electronic stuff by some white people, and they were showing me like all these like tools and all this stuff and all the software and stuff they were using, but the music was trash, man. Like you got a dude from the UK, and he's like, "Good evening, guys. Today we're gonna do a bit of scoring, yeah. We're gonna do a bit of, you know, bit scoring for this soundtrack here." And then he, you know, he got all this equipment, and then he plays something, and the joint go like, and I'm like, "What is this?" And it's like horrible because I was trying to get like a scope for it. Then I type in hip hop scoring, nothing like pops up for real. And then I'm sitting there, and I remember I had this thought where I was like, should I do this? Like, am I gonna be able to do this? You know, but at the same time, there was the other part of me, besides the feel and all that stuff, where I was like, this could be interesting. This could be cool. You know, this ain't something I ever done before. I mess around with it on my own. You know, like I'll do something. It sound kind of like weird. You know, but it was never nothing that I really like thought about. So when you came to me about it, I'm like, okay. In the back of my mind, I'm like, but also like, this could be cool. So I don't remember too much about when you first came to me about it, because it was a while ago.
Yeah, that's real.
Ago, but
yeah,
all I remember is those two feelings: the feeling of fear, not having much information, because the stuff I saw online was, you know, a bunch of UK white people with, you know, in bedrooms with no beards, baby shaved, and they playing trash music, and I was like, okay, maybe I could do it.
If calling white people white and saying that they have that these white people had shaved faces and stuff was the thing that you were concerned about, I think you're okay. But yeah, so if we fast forward then, it was a couple of years. I mean, me and Tay probably talked about this same project every holiday.
Yeah.
That I saw.
I knew it was gonna come too. I knew it. I was like, okay, Trevor about to say something. I know it.
But the thing was, is like I still wasn't at a place where I was at the point where music was getting involved.
Yeah.
And it was like in reality, I think at the beginning of it was really just it was a point for us to connect, to talk a lot about a lot of music, to give some background. Tay and my little sister Alyssa have been dating for what, like 6 years at this point?
Yeah, man.
So Tay and Alyssa have been dating for forever. Shout out EJ Walrus.
EJ gang for life.
Look up EJ Walrus on Instagram and stuff to see my little sister's stuff. But Tay and like that was a point where we could connect and kind of build friendship, relationship kind of situation. And then when it came time for me to really think through the processes of who was I gonna ask, I remember talking to my brother, and he was talking to Aaron, and I was telling him, I was on the phone with him, and I was like, I'm struggling to pick. Do I pick between Tay and Mark? Because like Mark has done stuff like this before, and he has hip hop like background, like love and stuff like that. But Tay, I feel like has a closer connection to the sounds that I want. And it would also be putting on someone that I'm is gonna be a part of my life for, I would perceive, a pretty long time, you know? And that like I've continued to stay up with, like, you know, it seemed like there was a greater longevity within that space. And I remember telling Aaron, I was like, I just like the idea of also potentially putting Tay on to give him greater exposure to the world that I feel like I'm gonna reach, to be able to pay him to do something, and to be able to like to just see kind of what could come of this, right? And so that's how I ultimately landed on you, because I just felt like your soundscape would fit better. I felt like you would take up any challenge that kind of came in front of you. And if you were willing to take the position, because this was before I ever asked you, I was like, I just feel like you would take the challenge on. You would be able to bring in like our, like, even though our roots differ in terms of like how we came up, you know, the musical influences and stuff that you and I had growing up, although there are intersections, you know, I imagine you were allowed to listen to secular music growing up. And I was not. And so,
yeah.
And so there was that reality. It's just like there were still pieces that I felt like you could bring in, and then just the element of like blackness that you could bring to the table, that, you know, like Mark's Filipino and he's cool peoples, but Mark is also not black. And so there was an element for me when it was like, I'm trying to tell this story of a very black experience through a lot of these various scenarios. You know, it made a lot of sense to try to get someone who could embody those experiences. And a lot of those elements of blackness would be felt in the music. And so, yo, Tay, you suck. And so And so ultimately, that's ultimately how I kind of came to the position where I wanted to hit you up and ask you. And so I asked you, and you were like, this seems like it could be cool. Mm-hmm. And you said you were down. And I don't think either of us really knew what we were getting into at all. Like,
nope. I had no idea, man.
So
none.
Talk about that. Talk about how, because initially we thought that this project could be knocked out in like 4 months. And we were 4 months in and we didn't even have a track done. It was like 3 months. I don't think it was 4. I think we thought it was going to be able to be done in 3. And at the end of 3, we were like maybe closing in on getting the right sound for Fear Lane. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I remember it was, what was that of? It was Alyssa's graduation from VCU. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we were at I remember we gotten like dessert at that grocery store or whatever. And we were in the parking lot. And I remember like you were kind of discouraged by just how long it was taking. And how it was like, you kept shooting up, yo, I got this idea. And I'm like, nah, it feels different. You know, it feels like, I don't know. Like I'll say how I felt. Well, actually, you give your perspective on that beginning space and just like how it was just, you didn't really even realize like what have I gotten myself into. Talk about that, and then I'll kind of give the perspective of how stuff was going from the beginning.
Man, let me tell you this. When I first started like doing these doing like the you know, like trying to like develop like the sound palettes like and everything, especially for Fear, my mindset was totally different going into it, because usually the way that I usually work, or like the way I used to work then, was I make a track, and once I make that track is done. I send it to the person. The person don't like it, they ain't using it. We're gonna go to another one. But for this one, to stay on one thing for so long, for me, it was just like, there were a bunch of moments where I was just like, yo, we not getting nowhere. You know, I was just looking at these tracks and just like, you know, I would send it to you, and I'm like a little kid. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna send it to him. Okay, let's see what he gonna say. Okay, and then I send it to you, and then this is how I like envision you like looking at it. I'm like, okay, you know, click, and I send it. Okay, let's see what he gonna say. Okay, and then you just like this. You just sitting in the house. No, that ain't it. And then just go back. And I'm just in the house, and then I get the text. You like, yeah, this sound different. Da 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 da. And I'm just looking at it like, huh? What you want me to do? And now I'm just sitting looking at the computer like, what you want me to do? And I gotta force myself and sit back down, and I'm like, but then it was like in the beginning, I didn't like you said, I was discouraged. I was mad discouraged. I was like, this ain't supposed to take this long. At least I don't think, you know? Like, and I didn't know much about any of this, but in my head, I'm like, I'm supposed to send you something, and you supposed to like it. And that's it. And then we just keep moving on. But when you didn't like it, like that made me uncomfortable, because I'm like, wait, he don't like what I did? And then I started like, we'll get into this more on, but like plenty of times I would be talking to this and I'd be like, I don't think I can do this. I think he chose the wrong person. Maybe I'm not cut out for this, you know? Maybe I can't score. Maybe that's out of my jurisdiction. Maybe I should just be this type of producer. maybe this ain't what I am. But then eventually, when things started to click, there was a sense of relief where I'm like, okay, all right, thank God. Thank God. Okay, let's move on. But I would go back to it and I would listen to it because I'm still trying to grow as a producer. And I would go back and A-B them, put them side by side and be like, okay, you had a point with that. Like, that track does feel different than this one. It moves different, you know, especially with what you wanted Fear to be. You wanted Fear to be, you know, Fear Lane was the beginning. That was the thing that immersed you into it. And I remember that guitar sample, like, that changed. I think it changed from the beginning, like when I first sent it to you. But then once that sound got developed, you locked onto that sound and you were like, yo, don't touch that. And I even put it in one of the clips. I may send it to you at some point where the sample is named in the Ableton session file, guitar loop, don't touch this, Trevor like it.
Yeah.
I named it as that because I was like, he liked this. So don't touch it. Don't do nothing to it. Nothing. And then eventually I started to get it and I was like, okay, he getting on my nerves, but he making sense. You know what I mean? So it was a bunch of all that like together.
Yeah, there was definitely the place in kind of the, it's like I told Aaron this early on. I've talked about this elsewhere in Durag Thoughts this season. My approach is very Kendrick Lamar in the sense that I'm very hands-on to the entire process because even though I didn't have a good understanding of this is exactly sonically what I need this to sound like, and I also didn't want to do that because I wanted to give free reign for you to be creative. But I knew this doesn't flow and this doesn't fit, this doesn't do this, that, and third. In the beginning, the thing that we were really, oh God, hit the key on the keyboard. But
you sitting on the pillow?
Yeah, but I'm also like, let me see. I can't even see. It's got, oh frick, my daggone the bottom of my screen showing. Hold up, y'all. I'll be back in a second. Gotta fix this little thing real fast. Ooh, that looked a little crusty. You know, sorry, YouTube. We gonna get this right. I'm leaving this in the video though.
Nah, leave all this, man.
I just didn't want that little blur showing at the bottom.
The blurry blur. What are you talking about?
There was a little lens flare situation happening. But I'm sitting on the couch. I gotta make this thing look nice. But anyways, so in the beginning of what we were doing, the big problem was, okay, so you were engaging a challenge that was unlike anything you've done before, because most producers have packs of beats, and they, like hip hop producers, have packs of beats. They send artists packs. Artists pick the packs that, like the beats that they want, and they rap over the beats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you might make some modifications and stuff, and take a beat to the next level, but you're sending packs of beats. COG is set up from a space where I wrote the records and recorded the records first, and then you scored them. So when we say scoring, people, like, that's what we mean by scoring. Like, I did the work and of recording my vocals and all those things, and Tae came behind that and scored it as if he was scoring a movie. Because in a movie, if you've watched in certain spaces, like scoring sessions back in the day, it used to be more like this, where you'll have like whoever the I don't know what the technical term, the conductor or whatever, whoever, like you have the person who's kind of the chief of all that process, the producer of that process, and they might have like an orchestra in the room or something, and they're watching a scene play out. Let's say The Lion King or something. You got Hans Zimmer or something, and he's telling people where to bring this up and where to go here and stuff to follow the flow musically of what's happening on the screen. And so I'm telling Tay, yo, this is exactly doing that. And so this is my piece. I didn't even have an understanding of like BPMs or anything at that point. I still don't really have an understanding of BPMs. But I'm like, I've recorded these things, score them. And Tay I remember when we started, Tay said, yeah, what BPMs are each of these joints recorded at? And I said, oh, I don't know. And he was like, oh, man, well, I guess I'll figure it out. And so, even that, like, there was no like set BPM that stuff was recorded at or anything like that. I wasn't listening to a metronome. I wasn't doing anything where I had to follow the flow of any beat or anything like that.
Even that too, like that shows you right there where my mind was when we went into this. Because if you think about it, even with scoring, from what I remember, there is no real like constant BPM throughout like a score. My mind then during like with producing was, my mindset was centered around a fixated BPM, one that doesn't change, 120, 130, 160, or 90, or 85, and it stays the same throughout the entire track. With this, there was a lot of movement in yours. Like with a lot of these tracks, it'll start at a certain BPM, and then it'll just drop all the way down, and then slowly pick back up, pick back up, pick back up. So even that shows you like where my mind was. I was like, okay, what's the BPM? Because that's how you start a session. If I'm in the studio, somebody may come in and be like, oh yeah, I want something with a little 140, 160 BPM. That means there's a little energy to it.
Yeah, a little faster.
So even that shows you where I was.
Yeah. And so we were walking into a space where I knew I was gonna it was gonna have to push Tay, but I also didn't have a ton of the terminology for what he needed to understand and hear, from a musical understanding perspective. So I couldn't necessarily explain the stuff in the way that it needed to be explained. And then at the same time, he was trying to come over these challenges of, this is a different world than what I've ever done. And so I remember the first iteration of Fear that you sent me, and it sounded good. It was like very jazz, hip hop influenced and stuff, and it sounded really good, but it didn't fit the record. And it sounded like two different pieces. Like it sounded like there was a musical piece and there was a spoken word piece. Like it didn't sound like they were one unit. And I was like, this is like, for all sorts of other stuff that I would do in my life, this would be great, but this isn't, this doesn't feel like these things are communicating with one another. They just felt like they were sitting autonomously. And for the most part, you had been in a position where you weren't needing to mold something. Like it's been the artist's job to mold a vision with your music, rather than you molding your music to a vision of words that are already cast. Like someone might be like, oh, I want something that's slow or fast or this or that. And you have some sort of like framework for that.
Yeah.
But you didn't have like that. It's just it's a completely different process. And that's why we've talked about like, there's not many hip hop producers, period, who can say that they've scored anything. It's like maybe like RZA or something, But it's not like, it's a very, very small group of people.
Yeah.
And so you were already like taking on a task that is just, you know, is a beast. Is a beast. So, like you said, when it felt like we were actually turning a corner and there was some senses of relief, like, what moment for you was there a particular moment within the project where you felt like, okay, we finally getting somewhere? Is there something that you remember?
I think there were a bunch of moments. There were like, yeah, there were a bunch of them. I think for me, there were the moments where I would do what you asked, and then I was like, okay, I would send you something, and you're like, okay, this needs to fit more with this, and I do it, and then I'm done with the track. So there will be other moments where I would do it, but then step back, and then I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna try it my way and see what happened. And when I would do it, I would listen back to it. And I think though that's like one moment where I would say, like throughout, I would step back and say, we're getting somewhere. Like it's starting to it feels different than it did before. You know what I mean? Like it feels like I'm in it now, if that makes sense. Like in the beginning, it was like I still felt like there's with music and with producers and engineers. If there's anybody who's an engineer watching, they'll understand like this terminology. But there's like in the box and out of the box when it comes to like mixing. In the box means like you're using all like plugins and stuff that's already inside. Like in the box just means on your computer. Plugins and stuff that's housed on your computer. Then there's out of the box, which is like a board, like an SSL board or something like that, where they got all the knobs and everything on it. And you got racks with all these like different plugins and buttons and all that stuff. And I remember I went to my friend Tim, he's in med school right now down here, but he's also an engineer. And I went to him a bunch of times and I told him like, hey, I'm having trouble with this project because I don't feel like I'm in it, you know, like in it in terms of like, I don't feel like I got much control. And when I started to do things like that, where it was like, you know, like, Heritage of Hate, like that interlude, doing that interlude was one of those big moments for me where I really felt like I'm a part of this record now. Like literally I was, because my voices were in it, but I felt like, okay, I feel like I can control it now. Like I feel like I'm like smack dab in the middle and I'm moving the pieces like by hand. And I think those were the moments throughout, like with Fear, when it started to work, you know, and I started to feel like, okay, something's happening. And another one that I remember that that we talked about this before, but where I felt like, okay, this is a project. This ain't just something that we just, you know, throwing together. Like this is a project. When the ones where you were talking about your dad, I think
It's Brave Boulevard.
Whoa boy, that track. When I was working on that track, like, because in order to work on these, you know, on this project and on each like track, I had to listen to these tracks like over and over and over and over and over, like on loop. I would loop like certain sections, like 15, 20 minutes, like straight, just listen to it over and over. And I felt myself like getting mad. And I'm like, wait, why I feel like this? And I took a step back and was like, oh shoot, we doing something here. You know what I mean? Because it then, like with all these different things, like with me feeling like I'm in the middle of it, I can control it. Me feeling like, you know, it's starting to affect me now. Like it's not just something I'm just looking at and listening to. Like it's something that like I'm actually a part of it, to the point where I'm in it. I feel like I can control it, and it's also like affecting me now. I walk away and I'm feeling mad, or I'm feeling like real sad, and I'm just like, contemplating everything. I'm just sitting in the room like, what is life? What is this thing? You know what I mean? Or I'm sitting back and I'm like, how does it make me feel about my dad? You know what I mean? Like it was plenty moments like that where I took a step back from it and I was like, we making a project. This is an album. You know what I mean? Like this is real. It's starting to come together. Like and it started to flow. It started to feel like a story, an inclusive story at that pulled me into it, pulled anybody who listened to it into it. So I think those are the moments for me where it started to come together, and I was like, okay, this is a project. This ain't just some songs, or just some sounds. So.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when it comes to you, when you're listening to music, the first thing that you hear is not lyrics. The first thing you probably hear, I would imagine it would be like drums, something like that.
It's shifted now. It's shifted. Before, when we first started on this, it used to be drums. But now, after working on this, it's not.
Okay.
Now the drums come like second or third. Now I'm listening to, because remember the track All the Stars and how much I used to talk about that track.
Yeah, you talked about All the Stars a lot towards the end of the record.
Because and that's another thing too about this project. It helped me appreciate all these like little teeny elements, because I always used to like the small weird stuff within music, but this really helped me like really focus on it, and like now I know what I'm listening for, and like those are the moments where I would listen to like specifically that track, and I was like, what is that weird sound in the back? How did they do that? What did they have to go through to do that? Is that post? Is that pre? But now it's changed. So now when I listen to music, I'm listening to like the melodies and the weird sounds and the textures and all that stuff. And then I'm listening to the drums. And then I'm like, how is it? Like them drums just cutting straight through it, but it's not too much, So yeah.
Yeah.
It's shifted. First, now it's the melody and the textures and all that stuff. And then it's the drums. So
yeah. And so for me, I don't know that that's the first thing I hear in music, because it takes me a while to like totally grab what someone says. But with this project, I was very much so like, it's like lyric heavy. Like it's, it's very much so like, this is the story I'm trying to tell. And I remember we'd have to have like conversations about what I was actually talking about. Because I'm like, how are you not getting this? Like, it says it right there. And you're like, I'm not a lyrics person like that,
Yeah.
And so I remember there were like, at one point we had a call where we were talking about, because in the beginning we were talking almost every week. And there was a call where we were like, I explained out a couple of the tracks, and you were like, that is actually really helpful.
Oh yeah.
Can you do that for the rest of stuff? And so then we started having to figure out like our rhythm of working together. I started making you like inviting you to view my notes on Apple, and then I had to send you audio files. I forgot about this until this moment, but I sent you audio files that were overviews of every track and what the story was behind it and what the feel was and stuff like that. And then we started figuring out like what the inspirations that I really wanted to hone in on, because at first it was like we had a big landscape of like jazz and gospel and hip hop and this, and then we really honed it in, and it's like, well, the records that we really feel from this are like Saba, Care For Me, Black's East Atlanta Love Letter. Of course, we were already on the Kendrick mode of really Good Kid, Mad City and T-Pab. Those were the two records that we were really holding to there. And I think those were kind of like the big records. Maybe like For Your Eyes Only was another record where we kind of had some stuff, but it was like Black's record is a really good example of those weird textures, because he has a ton of those. And I was like, this is the type of stuff, because like when I was a little kid, I was a little singing nigga. Like that would just be around the house just singing stuff, and I just I probably remember, you know how you think in childhood you were so much better at something than you actually were. And I think thinking back then for a long time, I thought I was like a really good singer as a kid, and then I just lost it when I got older. I just think I was never really good. But as I reflect now in being a realist about it, but when it comes to that stuff, I was always singing in the house. And so R&B and things like that are things that really influenced me, but I wanted the hip hop feeling, and Black does that really well because he still raps. You know, he only threw it on one track on East Atlanta Love Letter, but he can very much so still rap. And so we had to figure out what are the true inspirations. And then there were points where, like you said, if we're talking Heritage of Hate interlude or Silent Stream interlude, those were moments where it was like, say, this is my concept, you do with it what you want to do. Like those were moments where I just was like, yo, hands off, like just go. And in both of those moments, you came back with stuff that like I instantly was just like, yeah, go. Like that was tight. And I think at that point we had developed a working relationship. And I think one of the things that we don't give ourselves credit for in this, because we were on that pandemic flow before the pandemic, because we were never in the same room working on this to this day.
We only met up like what? One time officially when you came by my spot.
Yeah, that was the only time where we sat. So it was last Thanksgiving 2019, that, because people will be hearing this in 2021. But
that's crazy.
But Thanksgiving 2019 was the first time that we got to be able to get together and sit down in this. And we didn't even get far in that session because, which it was like I had to also there like I'm very aware of this. Well, let me finish the thought from the earlier thing before I go on a tangent. But we were on that pandemic flow because we didn't sit in a room and work on this. So it wasn't like, and at that point you had gotten through the record basically. Like it was almost done.
Yeah.
And so we were so much in a space of, you were nearing done, because I had to go back and do some other stuff to fix some stuff in Raleigh that I had done wrong. And then we'll talk about that moment from Thanksgiving too. But we were on this remote working situation, which isn't something that you do either, unless it's like sending someone beat packs. But you're the type of person who likes to like function in the same room with somebody and fill out a session.
Yeah.
And
I need to be there and feel that energy. Feel that vibe, the energy and all that. Yeah,
exactly. And so for this, it was, you had to take on a new approach to music in general and production in general, do sounds that you weren't necessarily used to doing, and then also do it remotely. And so we were working with all those challenges, and it wasn't like I had the bandwidth to come out there because I was in seminary, I was working full time. And if anyone knows about working in churches as a creative person, you get stretched really, really thin. And so I was already super stretched thin. So there was no way that I was going to be able to just like drive from Raleigh, North Carolina up to DC and function with Tae to do this project consistently. And so
they're that word again, function.
Function, cuz.
Yeah. That's a nice word. You should call this episode function.
Yo, we out here trying to function.
Yeah.
And so, not a COVID cough. But there was really a place where it was hard because I could like something, but I also had to be real with you about where something needed to go. And it was hard. Like, I'm the type of person who I'm hyper analytical. And so when I hear something or see something, a visual or whatever, I'm just like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. Like, I'll feel out all the flaw. Like, even if I'm hearing something and I like it, I'll also hear like the and so like I'll be ready to just say everything that's like needs to be changed, even if I like the meat of something. And I have to like pull myself back from those things and communicate the good, and then communicate the stuff that needs to be changed, and then communicate the good again. And I knew that I was like, I knew that in the sense of the spaces with you. And this is our first time working together on a project. And it was like any other musical thing that you've ever sent me. It's been like, yo, this is crazy. And
this
so,
hard.
yeah, this hard, as Tay would say, you know? And so, and I knew with you and I's kind of friendship at that point, it had only been affirmations. But when it comes to like my bodies of work, oh, best believe like I'm gonna be like nitpicky about every detail. And there were points where it was like, I was so hesitant to tell you if I heard something, like I didn't want to, because I didn't want to discourage you. But I also knew if I didn't tell you that I was gonna regret it 10 years from then. And be like, I hate how this sounds right here. And I could have just told him and dealt with whatever it was going to feel like in that moment. And we could have got the sound that we needed, but I punked out and didn't say it. And I let that ish go and just said, yo, I gotta say whatever I need to say. And so I knew it was challenging for you, but then I also knew that I needed to get out of this project what the project needed to be, or it was a waste of time. So yeah, that space was really interesting. And I can't remember the thought that I tried to like go off on a tangent on before that, but it is what it is. And I think also, like you said, you thought it was going to take way quicker. I didn't have not a COVID cough. I didn't have enough.
You gotta put the little joint on the screen.
Yeah, it's gotta blink out every time
with the asterisk.
Yo, I gotta have the like not a COVID cough counter on the freaking.
Oh yeah, that'd be tight.
But I didn't know enough about music to know how long it was gonna take or not. And so we thought it would take a couple of months. It took like a year.
It took a long time, man. And with life and everything else that was going on, so.
Exactly. And so it was, and even with the video stuff, I thought the video stuff would go quicker than it went, and it didn't. And there was like, in my head, I was like, I know that this could progress quicker, but we all had other stuff to do. Like, you know, you have other music projects to work on. You have a job, you know, and it's like, you're like, this was a venture that you didn't know that you were getting into this rabbit hole. And so you thought 3 months, and then it was like quickly realized this is not going to take 3 months. And so for me, I had to like even fight the frustration of like, yo, why is this taking so long? And you were also fighting the frustration of, yo, why is this taking so long?
Man.
And so, and then even like on the other end with video and stuff, it'd be like, yo, we're gonna, like, I remember we were supposed to start shooting in September. I met up with my boys and I was like, yo, so what does y'all September look like? And like both of them, their whole schedules were like blocked out, like in terms of like they had no open dates all of September. And I'm like, bruh, like we said we were gonna start shooting in September. This is September 2019. And I was like, again, it was one of those moments where I had to like silence my frustrations so that I could get the help that I needed in order to execute this body of work, because I knew it wasn't possible by myself. But it's also like when you work with other people, you have to work with, like, everyone has different personality, like all these dynamics. Like you're trying to lead within this role, and so I'm this central figure trying to like do all this stuff. but also like working with how everyone else is feeling and being able to like manage team dynamics and manage like, I don't want Tae to not feel motivated to finish this thing. I don't want Tae to be like, F it. And so then like, you know, there are moments where it's like, I got to kick into overdrive how much he knows that I like this piece. Because I knew if I wasn't telling you that and I was only communicating what needed to be changed, the cycling monologue in your head was going to be, oh, he don't really like this record. Mm-hmm. Like this thing sucked. Mm-hmm. And so, but here we are at the end of it. And I'm like, now it's flipped. You be talking about the stuff that you don't like about it. I'm like, to me, I think it's incredible. Man. Like it's gotten to the point where I'm just like, yo, I'm so proud of what you did with it. And I just don't think a lot of people can hold a candle to it. And
hold a what?
A candle to it.
Oh, I thought you said a camel. I'm about to say, why would you hold a camel to it?
Yeah, cuz you know me, we out here, we got these camels, cuz two humps, 3 humps, 4 humps, what you want. Like
sheesh. But you out here with the camel life.
but yes. So yeah, I'm so bought into the project, but then for you've evolved so much as a producer throughout this time. Now you're hearing stuff that you probably wouldn't have heard a year and a half ago.
Not at all.
That you're now feeling some type of way about, because even like for the people who don't know this, like Tae produced the beats, like produced the musical score to the whole thing, but he also is the mixing engineer. He also is the mastering engineer. Woo! Like, so he's doing all of these steps, and all of those steps in the process of building a project force you to listen differently and force you to hear different aspects of the music and force you to walk into those different spaces. So now, Tae, kind of talk a little bit about maybe just that kind of role reversal we're in right now, where like now there's things that you think about that, oh, I don't know how I feel about this, and like looking back on the whole record. Because you said to me the other day that there's spots that you really like, and then there's other spots where you're like, nah, this could be better, this could be different. Like, well, kind of talk about your evolution, not a COVID cough.
Every time I be trying not to laugh, I just feel it like,
yo, there's such weak coughs too, cuh. There's such weak coughs.
Oh shoot, no, I got one. Oh shoot.
There's these little coughs that are like little love taps. Like it's like when a little kid, you know, like when a little baby be wanna like try to punch you or something. Like little toddlers will run up to you and think they're so strong and like throw a punch at your leg, and it's just like, boy, like that ain't do nothing. Like, why are you doing? Exactly. But talk about the evolution of like just your ear and like how this process has been for you, and like growing through all the challenges, trials, all those things. Just talk about some of
that. So if I can remember correctly,
oh, this nigga.
That was it. There were I think that there were moments throughout when I could see a shift in my perception of music and just how things. I can't.
It's like how long will he be able to hold his African persona?
Oh, I can do this all throughout the whole video. If you just give me a second just to rehydrate my.
Now why you rolling R's? How did you become an African man speaking Spanish?
Rehydrate. Oh man. Nah, like I think that it's a weird shift because I don't even know like when it happened. Like for real. All I know is in the beginning, like I said, I was like a kid. And I was like, okay, Okay, let's send this to him and see what he say. Let's see if he like it. I hope he like it. He may like it. He may not like it, but let's just see. And then you send it back, and I'm like, you ain't like it? Why? And then now it's like when I send you something, I'm already like thinking about it. Like even like you said, when I listen back to the record, there's plenty places where I'm looking at it and I'm like, I could have did that better. That transition could have been better. Or this could have been a little bit better here. Or that could have been like with the vocals. Sometimes I'm like, that vocal, like even now, like thinking about this, I'm tempted to go back and remix it again. I am. I'm tempted to start from scratch because when you think about it.
Hold on. Don't pull a Kanye with The Life of Pablo. That nigga changed the mixes 15 times. Like my brother and I have talked about it. Like the Life of Pablo that Aaron knows isn't the Life of Pablo that exists in the world right now, because he got the Life of Pablo like when it first dropped, and then he was in a Uber. And I don't know if he's told you this story, but he was in an Uber and somebody was playing like The Life of Pablo. And he said, oh, this is a new Ye record? Like, what's this? He's like, no, this is The Life of Pablo. Like, yeah. He's like, yeah, it's The Life of Pablo. It's like, whoa. He's like, that's not The Life of Pablo I know. And because he had only been listening to the joint that he had downloaded. That was the first mix, but Ye changed the mixes on Tidal like 4 times and was like, it's a living work of art. And it's like, yo, sometimes you just gotta let it go. Like, because sometimes you touch stuff so many times that it can make it work. Now, if we talking 20 years down the road and you want to do a COG anniversary edition and remastered, that's a different story. Like, that's what they do with like The Lion King. Like, you can do that ish. But when it comes to this point in time, it's like, bruh, I'm telling you this much, when we talking about musical scores, the Lion King soundtrack is one of those. I listen to musical scores. I listen to cinema scores when I'm trying to study or work on something. But I can't do it. I can't do it with the Lion King because I know those scenes so well, because that score is so incredible. Like, it's so, Hans Zimmer is a freaking master, but those scores are so iconic and that movie is so iconic that when certain scores start playing from that movie, I see the scene and I can't focus. And so I have to listen to some obscure score or something I've never seen. Like, I can listen to Harry Potter scores because I ain't never seen it. And so, you know, it's like, okay, Harry Potter, like, I don't know what's happening. So
that's what it sound like to you?
Nah, I can't remember. I like, it's got some like sort of magical sound, and you know, if I do that, my mom gonna pop out and say, "Demon!" No, she ain't gonna do that. But yeah, it's like the whole. I just wanted to interject with the Life of Pablo story, but continue. Like, you're even now tempted to go back and change things.
Yeah, but I think that it comes from a good place because, as both of us, as creatives, we're always learning. We always learning something new. Always. Every day you get. I saw on your Twitter, you said something about the smoothing tool or something like that in Photoshop or something like that.
A brush smoothing. I ain't learned about that until a week ago, and it changed.
You see what I mean?
It changed my whole COG rollout.
Exactly.
Because I've been using the freaking Intuos pad, and it just has felt so sensitive, and I couldn't really feel. I wouldn't feel like I was drawing fluidly. Changed everything. But continue.
You see what I mean? It's the same thing with this, like with the EQ that we were talking about right before we got on. This stuff I know about that EQ now, which is one of the biggest reasons why I want to go back and remix it, because I didn't know that about an EQ. I didn't know that EQs could alter frequencies in multiple directions. I thought it was just, okay, with the EQ, I'm going to cut off the low end of your vocal so it won't sound like this. You know, because this right now sound real muddy. But I wanted to sound clear. Are you laughing?
Right now, this sound real muddy.
But you know, like... I hope you keep all of this in here, man.
Oh, I'm absolutely keeping it in.
Keep all of this. But I thought that an EQ was just linear, just straight, just left, right. Cut the low end out so you won't sound muddy. Tame the high end so you won't sound like real harsh, and then cut some of the stuff out in the middle. And that's what I thought about when I thought about EQ. But now what I just learned, maybe in the past month or 2 months or so, now I'm learning that you can EQ the sides, and you can EQ the middle, and you can EQ in terms of like mono and stuff like that. Not stereo, but mono. Now I'm like, wait. Now I can get all those sounds that I hear, like with Kendrick's To Pimp a Butterfly, Mortal Man. At the end of that track, there's a part where, and even as I'm thinking about it, even Cole's record, and at the beginning of whatever the joint is called, I can't think of it right now.
KOD? For your eyes. Okay.
KOD. At the beginning of KOD, there's a sound in there with a lighter, and if you go back and listen to that, like when they not the lighter but the match, when they light that match, if you listen to it really carefully, now I know you'll catch it because we're in this whole world of listening to stuff on a deeper level than like the average listener. If you listen to it, that lighter doesn't sound like it's like, if you look at my screen, like right here, that lighter sounds like it's here. It starts here and then comes to here because of how they EQ'd it.
Hold on. So for the people who are just listening and not watching, so Tay put up both his fingers, and so it sounds like it's starting at left and right channel. So think if you're listening to headphones, like it's starting at your left ear and your right ear, but then it moves into the center, so you can hear it through both in a middle kind of space. I don't even know why this nigga laughing.
Because you sound like the way you say it move is random, but the way you say it move remind me of how Shannon Sharp be talking.
Oh god,
because he had this joint, he was like, skip, it's gonna be like a cloud and be removed.
Yo, shout out to Unc, huh?
Hey, shout out Shannon Sharp, man. But go ahead.
Well, that's it. You keep going. So the lighter moved.
Hey, the lighter gonna be like a cloud and be removed. But like they do some interesting like tricks when it comes to like EQ, and like certain things sound like I did it with your rollouts, with the joints that you sent me that you recorded and you wanted me to mix them. With a lot of like the cars and all that stuff, I spread it out so that it felt real wide. I wanted it to sound like it was on the sides of you, but also behind you at the same time. And I couldn't do it with volume, so I had to do it with the EQ. I had to cut out the low end on the sides, and when you do that, it allows the listener to feel as if the cars are like behind them, not just on the left and the right of them, but also behind them. It creates depth of field with sound, which is crazy. And when I'm learning all this now, I'm thinking to myself, why the heck didn't I know this when I first started mixing COG? Because I could do some crazy stuff with it, So that's one of the reasons. That's just one. There's plenty other reasons why I'm like, I want to go back and redo this. Even part of me even wants to go back and reproduce a lot of the stuff too. Because now I know how to make a lot of sounds and stuff like that, and also manipulate sounds with a lot of plugins. And I'm like, Brave could use this, or I could do this with that guitar, or I could do like with the title track at the very end. I'm like, now that I understand EQ a little bit better, I could make those orchestral drums move a lot more, make them more dynamic. But at the same time, I'm like, that's okay.
Yeah, it makes me think about my color grading process, because like it took me a solid month to color grade this project. And I remember when I got to I had gotten multiple tracks in, and I was learning more and more about color grading in DaVinci Resolve, which is like an industry standard color grading tool. I then started learning more about converting stuff to Rec 709, which is the color space that's kind of standard in monitors and TVs and stuff like that. And so I was like, dang, I should have converted everything. And then I learned a different setting within the main settings of the program where it would like switch everything over in a certain way rather than using a LUT, lookup table, which is just like a group of settings. Because like, think of that as almost a filter in a sense. It's kind of destructive, but this is more so going into the data and converting the data rather than going and adding the settings on top of the stuff that already exists. And so it makes for a better color grade. And so when I learned that, I'm like, frick. and it made me like, I had to go back and readjust all these videos. And then it's like, then you learn, okay, how do you work with different types of footage when doing this? Because you're picking the main kind of format for the footage that's there. And so you're trying to figure these things out. It's like, what about the stuff that I shot later that was just on my Sony A7R II? What about the stuff that we shot on the Atomos Ninja 5 with the Canon, EOS R? And so everything from that's coming in a certain way. And so it was just like, there was this process was there. And then I know like there's already another process when it comes to color grading of trying to get your footage to look the same as it does in the program when you put it on YouTube or when you put it on into Premiere, and all these different challenges that you find yourself up against. Like, those are all these things that I'm kind of pressed up against. And I know I'm gonna like the project's already gonna be done by the time that people are hearing this, but it has not dropped. It drops in a week from when we're recording this. And so there's going to be times where I'm looking at stuff as I'm like preparing to drop it, and I'm going to be like, dang, why didn't I do this like this? Like, even when I first exported the trailer, I had applied for a grant, and then I realized that something was off in the way that Premiere was processing stuff. And so then I was like, frick, okay, no, we can't do this. And so I readjusted the way that I was even exporting, because it was desaturating my footage, and so then I figured out what was going wrong. I was like, dang, this looks way better. And so they saw a version of the trailer that's not even the version of the trailer that everyone else has seen. And so there were all these things I was like, dang, like I wish I could go back and switch that and switch, but at some point it's like stuff's just got to live. And you can kind of go back and adjust certain things, and within it, when it comes to your space of mixing and mastering, like, we haven't finalized to the point where we're ready to put it up on Spotify at this moment. And so, that stuff still sits within your hands of how this stuff needs to sound jumping onto those platforms. But when it comes to like even stuff now, it's like we have picked a specific way in which we are putting the videos out. And then we're picking a specific way in which we're putting stuff on streaming platforms and hopefully vinyl and things like that. And so it's like you're always going to be evolving. In 6 months, if you don't look back at your stuff that you made 6 months ago and think, dang, I could have done this better, this better, this better, you're not getting better. You're not evolving. You're just staying stagnant. And if you're staying stagnant, you're probably not becoming a better artist. And so I think it's just a testament to you and me growing in our craft. I remember a couple weeks ago you sent me a screenshot of my notes, and I can't remember what they were notes on what track. Do you remember what track that was? It wasn't Brave. What was it? And you said this, you were like, this joint right here pissed me off. When I got this,
Oh man,
I was ready to throw the computer.
Man, I was so man. Hold on, cause I think I can find it.
Cause I know what it was. It was wasted. It was wasted way.
Ooh, man, you sent me these notes, man. Hold on. Keep talking. I gotta find that because when I look at it, it's gonna bring it back.
Because all right, so Wasted Way, the way it sounds now, it didn't sound like that, and I was like, it doesn't sound sad enough, and so I.
Oh yeah, man.
And I was like, I was like, because at that point we had made like progress, like we had done multiple tracks, but I was like, this joint just doesn't sound sad enough. Like it's not embodying how dark I felt in this moment. And that was the thing that I kept trying to, like, I had to like figure out the ways to communicate the best. I'm like, Tayshawn, like I wanted to die. Like I just wanted it to be over at this point. Like at this point in my life right here, I was just like, God, just please take me. Like I don't want to do this anymore. Because I just felt that bad. I was like, this needs to sound dark. And so when like it was the iteration before, what it is now, it just wasn't dark enough, and I was struggling. And I remember talking to my brother about it. I'm like, bruh, I'm trying to communicate this and I don't really know how. And he was like, he had suggested that I send you reference tracks because your communication language is music. And so I remember when we were talking about this, you were like, he sent me tracks. Like, I don't know music.
Wait, when?
You told me this a couple weeks ago. You were like, he's like, you gonna send me some tracks like I don't know music.
Oh yeah, man, because you were sending me these you were sending me all the stuff in the back of my mind. I'm like, does he not know that I'm a producer? He's sending me all this stuff and I'm sitting here and I gotta act surprised. Oh wow, I've never thought about it like that before. Thank you for sending this. And because I wasn't thinking about it that way. In my head, I'm just like, why he sending me all this music? I make music. I know what this stuff is, but I wasn't thinking about it that way. I was thinking about it in a way like, why he keep sending me music? Like I ain't never heard this stuff before. You know what I mean? But in context, it made sense. But I wasn't looking at it in context. I was just like, keep sending me music, bro. I want you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was different. But yeah, when you sending it to me, I was like, all right.
And the thing was, it was crazy when you got it. Like the next iteration you sent, I was like, holy crap. Because the music, I remember communicating this to you, and then it showed you something about it that you hadn't really realized. That it felt like it was spiraling down.
Yeah.
It just felt like it was falling.
Yeah.
And I knew that crap was gonna happen.
What's that?
That's the coffee maker. I don't know why it do that. But if
what you mean you don't know why I do that?
Like after a while, it just like it'll beep randomly after I've made coffee at some point. But yeah, and maybe there's an alarm on it or something. But I knew it was gonna happen. I was like, maybe I should unplug this because it's gonna make a big old noise in the podcast. But who cares, y'all? Man, that was a coffee maker. I'm sorry.
That coffee maker needs some help.
It helped me. So when I felt like Wasted Way, like you had gotten to that point and it felt like it was falling, I was like, holy crap, because that's how I felt. Like I just felt like I felt like I hit rock bottom. I felt like I had been falling through that season. And then I felt like I hit rock bottom. And I bet you felt this. It was like when stuff wasn't A1, like when I felt like stuff needed changes, I would tell you. But then when I felt like something hit somewhere, I would just like over the top it. I'd be like, bro.
I remember the joint.
I'd be like, bro, did you hear this? Like,
you go through it and you would send me like this stream of text messages and you'll be like, frick, the drums, the vocals that came in, frick, this sound came from this side. Whoa, and the space that's in that, frick. I'd be like, oh, he feeling it. And I'm just sitting back there just smiling like, yeah, I did that. Yeah.
Bruh.
Yeah, just looking around like, this is up. You know what I mean? To see that level of appreciation was always kind of like, it was always a moment where I'd be like, what was that? That was a cough?
It was another non-COVID cough. Keep going, cuz. They gonna get tired of us.
So what? They get tired of it, tell them to leave. They know what this is. This, you know,
supporters, I don't want you to leave.
Black.
Supporters, I need you to stay around. No, keep going, cuz.
Come on, man. They know what it is. But it was just good just to get like, you know what I mean? It was good to get both. Like you said earlier, you was like you had to like get in the mindset of like, you know, having a balance of both. Or you like, you know, you give me the constructive criticism at the same time. But you also, you know, when it's time for the praise, you give all due praise and come through and be like, yo, this is tight. You got it, bro. Like, this is exactly what I was talking about. Like you said about the spiral. I didn't even know that. But once you brought it to my attention, I was like, oh yeah, I did do that. And then I was ready to leave it alone. But you wasn't ready to leave it alone. You was like, yo, this is how I felt. Like, this is what it was like. And I'm sitting back like, okay, that's what's up. Thank you. You know what I mean? So
yeah, cuz. I mean,
yeah, man.
Because you gotta think like, especially when it comes to, this is a story of my life. And so when the music like really embodied like what I was feeling in a moment and what I was trying to communicate in the track, then it was like, oh shoot, cuz. like I'm head over heels for it. Like all of a sudden, like I'm in. And so I remember like one of the first big moments of like sending a bunch of fricks was I was at my boy Nathan Kacharis's wedding. And it was the day of the wedding, and we were posted up at he and his wife Abigail's spot. Shout out them. And I was sitting in the chair that's a corner chair. Everyone's taking naps day of. And so like before we went to the venue, and I'm sitting in a chair and I've got on big old Audio Technica joints, and I'm listening to the stuff that you had sent me, and I just like went like big old grin, because it was just like track after track was just crazy. I remember I started like crying on one of them joints. I don't think it was Johnson Street, although Johnson Street makes me cry, like probably still to this day. There's a lot of points on the record where I just like, I start crying. This nigga.
Hey, you know they gotta be black. Come on, man.
Yo. And so I remember there were points where I was just like tearing up over tracks. I was like, frick, this is crazy, you know. Like this joint right here is hitting. And so I think about tracks like Johnson Street. I think about like the keys on Johnson Street get to me. The keys on City of God get to me. The title track, people, not the whole record. Like I'm trying to think of like the other tracks that like really, really got me emotional. Those are two that really, really stand out to me, are City of God and Johnson Street. Freaking like, I got shakes. Oh man, I think you might have sent this one when you sent Silence. Yeah, when you sent Silence Stream, and you had included like the chains sounds and stuff.
Yeah.
That effed me up, cuz. I was like, I was shaking. I was like, yo, this is wild. There were like moments like that where I felt like you had started really like embedding your imprint, and I was just like, this is crazy. Those moments really, really started to speak to me, really started to shake me. And
remember the joint with the voices? The joint where you were like spirits or something like that? And that joint went from side to side to...
that's still Silence, isn't it? Where
I think so. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that
When
when
those
the
fans go, like,
hallelujahs.
around. Yeah, buddy.
That joint was out of pocket cut. Like it was just, whew. It like those, like when I started hearing those sounds, it really was like one of those solidifying moments for me to think this is really about to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, I didn't grow up around producers. I didn't grow up with a bunch of music heads around me. I didn't grow up with a bunch of creatives around me. Bunch of my friends were like smart niggas, like in terms of book smarts. Like they were the top 5 in the class cats. They weren't creatives.
Yeah.
For the most part. And so I wasn't surrounded by artists like that. I went to a tech academy. And so when it came, and then I went to a school that didn't have like any art majors. And so when it came to me trying to create creative works, I was at a disadvantage. People were having big steps in front of me because they were in environments that were more artistic or with people who are more driven like that. And I'm in these small towns with no artists. And I'm just like, how do I get this done? And so when it really started to come into fruition and I really started to see, yo, this is really about to happen. These sounds are really starting to speak to me and stuff like that. Whew. Those moments, man. Those moments were big. And I remember I didn't even remember. Well, I didn't have the ear at that point to even understand that your demos weren't ready to be released. Because I remember once you finish demos, I'm like, these issues are it right here, boy. Like, we can put this up right now. And then you're like, oh no, these are like 60% done. Yeah. They need to be mixed. They need to be mastered.
And you remember when the mixes started coming in, when I remixed the mixes, and like a lot of them had like, there was space in it that you didn't even know that could even be there.
Bruh, I went back and listened to the other stuff after listening to the mixes, and I'm like, oh man, like I didn't realize, because I'd never been through that process before. And so then I started hearing stuff. I started hearing how stuff was flatter because you didn't have the spreading of frequencies and figuring out the different pockets stuff could sit. And so it made me a better audiophile, aspiring audiophile. And then it was even, we went through some trials and tribulations. Let's talk about that for a second. It's just, I quit my job at the end of 2019. And so we were trying to get to the portion of this work because I was trying to finish filming. And so me and Tay hadn't even talked about the project for like a month and a half. And then we were finalizing what stuff needed to be to get mixed. And at first, Tay wasn't going to mix the project. And then we went through some stuff that made it so Tay decided to mix and master the project. But when we had kind of reconvened about everything, I'd moved back home. I was unemployed. The pandemic was just about to start up. I didn't really have no money, and I needed headphones because I didn't have any high quality headphones to listen to mixes. And so in the beginning, like, I'm still trying to drop videos to YouTube and stuff. I don't got no monitors. I still don't have monitors, but I didn't have no good headphones. And so I'm sitting here trying to edit audio for videos, and I can't even monitor what stuff needs to sound like. And so I remember, and at first I didn't even have an iMac because the computer I had been using was the church's that I was on staff at before that. And so I didn't have the means to do what I needed to do. And then there was an extra computer sitting around the house, but it was an old MacBook. And so everything was taking like Woo! 2 non-COVID coughs. Everything was taking longer than it should have taken. And I remember I had HDMI'd the little, 13-inch iMac or the 13-inch MacBook to my TV and was just trying to work off stuff that way because it was a bigger screen. And then trying to figure out how I was going to color grade and things like that. It was just such a challenge. And then we got to the point where I needed to review mixes and I didn't have good headphones. And so then, for graduating from seminary, my family bought me some good headphones. And it was funny because I had bought a pair of headphones and it was off OfferUp, and the dude said that they were the Audio-Technica M50 Bluetooths, but they came in as the regular Audio-Technica M50s. And so I sent those back, and the fam had already been in the process of buying me the IIIs for graduation.
II.
And for the people who are just listening, they just look up AI headphones, and they're freaking modular headphones, incredible, and I love them, and they're totally matte black. I'm surprised Marquez Brownlee has not reviewed those because he's a matte black fiend. I might have to bother him to see if he'll look at them, but totally modular headphone set. You can change out the speaker units, you can change out the headband. Mine is a Bluetooth headband. Cable is, of course, like something that you can take off because most good quality headphones have an ability to pull a cable off and things like that. But really, really great headphones. But I remember me and Taylor thinking through all these processes and trying to figure out stuff like that. It was just such a challenge. It was such a big challenge. Whew. Going back to last year, so the one time that we got to get together, that was another one of those moments where I imagine that day was super discouraging for you because
discouraging
the Thanksgiving joint where I like heard for the first time that Fear had 2 different vocals on it.
Oh yeah. I remember now.
Because so we won't reveal too much about that, but basically, there was an issue with Fear that I hadn't heard, and I only heard it because it was on Tae's monitors, and my ear wasn't sensitive enough at that time to the point where I had heard it. Just listening over headphones. And so it was a big enough issue where it caused issues with the video. And so Tae had like put out all stops, his like, we're at a spot. Tae's like, I got a like plate of mixed nuts. Like he's like, well, you want water?
In the black plate. You gotta make sure you highlight that black
plate. And so Tae's like really engaged in this moment and like ready to present all of this stuff he's been working on.
I think I bought you curry too, didn't I? I think I made some curry and I brought it down to you.
Well, you were coming. I picked you up from work, and you let me have something that you had made from work, I think.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It was good too, but so there was this moment where Tae was about to like show all the stuff he's been working on, and then I listen to Fear and I hear that shift, and I was like, "Oh frick!"
Mm-hmm.
and like it, and I knew I had to address it, and I knew it killed the vibe, and so I imagine that day kind of sucked.
Man, it was a mix because it was a mix of both. Part of me was discouraged. I'm looking down because I really want to find that picture because that picture it it hit different when you look at it. Like when me and you look at it, it hits different. So I'm trying to find it, but
was it not in
yeah,
our text thread?
No, this is way back. This is when you came down, like that same day.
Oh, I got plenty of those. I was looking at those issues the other day.
It's the joint that you took. It was a video that you took, but I screenshotted the part of the video when you had me right between the monitors. And I think I'm almost there. Cause I remember my brother had came over not too long ago. We were joining on my roommate. Much love to my roommate if he watched this. But Baby Teeth. Remember Baby Teeth?
Yeah. Okay.
Uh-huh. So it's this. Now this wasn't even Baby Teeth. This is Langston. We were joining on his shoes. If you look at that shoe, shoe was a size 15.
I totally remember this one.
So my brother had came over not too long ago, and we were joining. There you go. He was joining on the joint. But this picture right here is part of the video that you had took. But I really like that because I don't got that many pictures of me like in like a studio, like from that perspective.
Yeah.
But part of me was super hyped because you got to be down there and you got to hear it, and I got to like show it to you. And from that point on, we had never been like in person with it. So there was part of me that was like hype. What you about to say? You got excited.
I was just saying we would be connecting at this moment, but the COVID has been here all year, and so I probably would have been up in function with you at least 2 times at this point. But it's like, yeah, the COVID is too much of a risk. But hopefully early in the year, like by the time people will be hearing this, we'll be able to have to get together, because we're gonna have to, like, especially when it comes to like the fact that we gotta celebrate.
Yeah.
At some point.
I mean, I gotta come down there at some point. And I gotta figure that out, like what that looks like, because I'm trying to come down there and see.
We have a rule here. It's called, if you're trying to come to the house, you gotta get a COVID test before you come to the house.
Man, I gotta get another one of them joints. Them joints. For anybody that hasn't had the COVID test yet, them joints is
treacherous.
They weird. Yeah, they weird, man. Feel like somebody putting salt water in your nose and just holding it there. It's weird. But I felt the mix of both because like I said, I was super hyped because we finally had a chance to sit down in person. But like you said, after you showed me that, I felt like it was like a backtrack. Like in my head, I'm like, how did I not miss that? I'm in this, and this is like my role. How did I miss that? And then I'm thinking, dang, because it's like if you spend, let's say you spend a long time working on something, and somebody come in and they tell you, like let's say you working in like Illustrator or something, and you devote like 2 months, 3 months working on something, and you got, let's say 200, 300 layers of work that you've done over those months, and somebody come in and they tell you, oh, by the way, that 5th or 6th layer is wrong, and you based everything based on you base all your work on those foundational layers, and they say, hey, by the way, that's wrong, you got to change that. You gonna be like, oh, you gonna be upset at the person, low key, because low key I was like, man, why that matter? Just go. But then I listened to it too and was like, you got a point. And then I look back at it and I started to feel bad for like about myself, about my work, because I'm like, how did I not catch that? Why did I think that was going to just like fly? So it was tough because it was a mix of both. Like I said, I was happy that she was there, I'm just hyped because it's like, oh yeah, he in the studio. Like we artists out here, But at the same time, I'm like, dang, that's a haymaker right there. That's gonna set you back a little bit. You're gonna have to catch your breath and figure out how to adjust and to move forward. So
yeah, and it was like there's this challenge of the fact that it was like I knew so much of what was coming after that was gonna be fire because we had already talked about it. And it was just going to be the opportunity to hear it on the speakers. But that moment I was like, frick, because there was a problem that like affected video stuff, like I had said. And I was like, frick, like this, because then it just like put me in a mode of like, am I in a crisis? Because I was already it was already hard enough to get people together to film. And so I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to like do anything to like reshoot this or something. And so it was a big challenge. But then we got over that hump. I had to re-record some stuff. And then I remember another moment where this was another moment I think that probably felt like one of those moments where you had control over the record. Was you made a comment on Emmanuel Avenue, and you were like, yo, you gonna have to re-record your vocals for Emmanuel Avenue.
Oh yeah.
Because you were like, it's too fast. It sticks out like a sore thumb in the context of the whole record. Re-record your vocals.
You said this is probably a moment where I felt like I had control.
I think so.
Nah, this is a moment where I was like, Trevor gonna get me.
Well, you sure enough said that. You sure enough said that like real bold, and were like, nah, this don't work. Like, you really need to re-record this. And I heard it, and I was like, oh no, you're right. Okay, like then I'll do it. Cause like
I don't remember that feeling. I as I'm thinking about it now, I'm like, shoot, I probably was scared. I don't remember feeling bold at all when I sent that. I probably was, but I don't remember it though. But go ahead.
Well, yeah, you told me that I needed to re-record those vocals, and I was like, all right, and I re-recorded them, and I can't remember if it was after I'd left working at the church, and so.
I think it was after, because I think there was something with like,
I didn't have the blankets anymore. I didn't have the moving blankets to use for like sound stuff. And so I had to like figure out other ways to do it because like for y'all that don't know, me and Tay ain't out here sitting in freaking $1 million studios. Like,
no,
I recorded my own vocals at my apartment in downtown Raleigh, North Carolina at the time. And I used the closet doors and clipped moving blankets to them and kind of like made a cocoon. And then behind me was my clothes to try to like absorb any sort of reverb, which would be echo for people who don't know what reverb is. Because you don't want those sounds in the recording. You want the sound to be as clean as possible for the producer. And so I'm sitting in this cocoon with this, little SE Electronics cone joint. I shouldn't have clapped. Sorry, audio. There's a gnat that's flying around here. I don't even know where it came from.
You sound like, listen now.
Yo,
gnat's coming in. Yeah.
This gnat won't hear all day. This gnat gonna come up when I'm recording. This is light. Anyways, plus I got the window open, so that probably don't help. But
how you do this when you gotta go to the bathroom?
Oh,
what you do?
You gotta pee right now?
Man, I've been having to pee for the past what?
We're gonna take 45. A short intermission. We're gonna take a short intermission. Tay needs to go pee. I'm gonna do a clap right here.
How much this I done drank?
But yeah, we're back. So yeah, there's just the challenges of that one section of fear. Oh, we're talking about Emmanuel Ave and how you had told me. Oh yeah, so we're talking about the recording process. So yeah, I recorded in my closet basically, and Tay, mixing in a home studio and stuff like that. We're not sitting here in big studios or anything like that in order to create this stuff. And so
those are headphones that I mixed a lot of it on. They can't really see it, but they're hanging right up there.
Tay has a pair of headphones that are hanging on the wall that are the headphones that he mixed a lot of the project with. And so
not these, but the other ones.
Yeah, hanging on the wall. That's what I said. So yeah, it's just there were so many challenges that we were kind of faced to overcome, but my brother Aaron has been such a guiding force for me in a lot of this stuff. In the episode on building a vision that it was like the fifth episode. It's the fifth episode of this season. I guess technically sixth because there's a kind of trailer episode. But Aaron talks about just the time that it takes to create certain projects. And in some ways it's like a Boolean base, like the idea in the beginning is a Boolean base, and you know, through time, like you need time to develop for it to stew to become the product that it needs to become, so that you can have, you know, whatever meal you're creating, and it's just that time that it needs to take. And so when it comes to this project, there was just the time. There's time in the sense of what it took for me to create the project in terms of what I wanted and what the words said and the depth of it and what stuff signified and things like that. But then it was also time for Tae to develop the music and evolve as a producer and learn different sides of producing that he'd done before. And the same things with my team that filmed stuff. You know, on the episode where Paris, Dorian, and I talk about the filmmaking process, they talk about a lot of the insecurities they had to overcome, because they would be so shook sometimes to do certain things. Like I remember in the beginning, Dorian would be like, I need you to can you check the exposure? Because I don't want to F anything up. I'm like, nigga, you shot plenty of videos before. Why are you asking me to set your exposure? Like, there's certain things like that where, because he doesn't do it full time, like it's his thing on the side, and it's just like there's so much riding on this that they didn't want to screw stuff up. And it's just, there's a space where you have to understand, like there's a reality that you must understand that you're gonna F stuff up. That's the process of making anything. If you're afraid to fail, it's gonna keep you from doing the thing. You know, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. The Wayne Gretzky quote. You know, it's the fear of failure should not be a thing that keeps you from moving forward. It's like you have to accept failure. You should almost be expecting and look, if you're not failing at all in the process, if non-COVID cough, if you're not failing at all in a process, you should there's something wrong. There's something wrong. There's something wrong, because there should be things, or maybe you're not pushing yourself hard enough. You're just doing the same old. But through a process of getting better and developing and things, you're gonna hit L's. Sometimes you hit flow states and stuff just goes. But problems arise. Problems are inevitable in a big project space. And so it's not what, like, adversity is not the fear. Adversity is not the defining thing, right? It's what you do in response to the adversity, how you overcome the adversity. Because some people crumble in the face of pressure. You know? No shade to Giannis, but Giannis has had top-rated, you know, NBA teams in the East the past 2 seasons, and the nigga ain't even made it to the Eastern Conference Finals yet. Been a double MVP, and his teams ain't made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. He ain't proven that he can stand his own ground in the East right now. And so but people talk about when the pressure's on with a person like Michael Jordan. You put the highest level of pressure on him in the finals, and he's 6-0. Now, granted, he's lost in the playoffs quite a few times. Before that, been knocked out early on and stuff, multiple times in his career. But it's like the moments that define a person show, okay, so what do you do when it's not smooth sailing no more. That's how a leader's defined. What do you do when the bottom falls out? When your character is actually tested, how do you operate there?
Mm-hmm.
You know, how do you operate in a space of adversity when something goes wrong?
Mm-hmm.
And that's stuff that people have to keep in mind and understand, and really kind of expect through the process of creating, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's real.
So as you look back, man, on this project as a whole, let me ask this. What's your favorite track of the whole record?
My favorite track.
Yeah, what's your favorite track?
What's the one that got the piano? Dun, 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 dun. The one where you I think it's Solidarity, the one where towards the end your friends and everybody start talking.
Yeah, that's Solidarity Circle.
Solidarity Circle is my favorite one. That's my. But then again, like, Lissa changed my perspective on that when she talking about favorites. Like, I don't have a favorite. I try to pin a favorite, but then what follows is like, oh yeah, but I like this track. But then I like this track. So I guess if I were to, it's tough. I don't know. Solidarity is definitely my top. That's my top. I like the way that track feels musically, and like the vocals and everything. I like that one. I really like that. That I think that's my favorite. With the vocals of your friends coming in, you know, the homies talking in the background and how it fades out. Yeah, I would have to say I think that's my favorite. Yeah. Probably, yeah.
You've told me that before. I'm not surprised that it's stuck as your favorite. It's interesting to me. I think that track goes hard for sure. I'm trying to think of for me, non-COVID cough, like 35. What the key, the musical arrangement of the title track is nuts to me. Those keys, the drums, the way they build. There's a lot of Africa. There's a lot of, for real. I was like, I said something to you about Africa. I feel like we about to take on.
Yeah. Like, I think that's exactly what you said.
I just said Africa.
All caps with like 6 A's on the end.
Yeah, cause I said that joint when I first heard that. That joint was crazy. I remember the first person when I sent that to one of my boys who I was trying to get to help me at one point for this joint, and he was like, "Wow, dude, you're killing it!" Like, and he's not even a person who's in this lane. And so that was interesting. I'm trying to think of the other stuff. So that track's nuts. Fear is crazy to me. Wasted Way and the way it spirals down, it's nuts. Some of those interludes, man, like the Heritage of Hate interlude is just nuts.
Heritage of Hate was that was probably the most fun one. I remember when I showed that to Aaron was just laughing. He was having a ball. Because he was like, wait, that's you?
He didn't think it was you at first.
You know? Yeah, I know. Until I showed it to him and I broke it down. There's one where I had my voice. I was like, they gonna shoot my baby. And I showed that to him and he lost it. Because the way it sounded, he's like, it's just, the only thing that went through my head was like, how would a black mom sound if, like, and it's sad, but it's also funny the way it was executed. Because I was like, how would a black mom sound if her son about to get shot? And I was like, okay, well, let me do it my way. But then it turned out to be funny because when you listen to it, you laugh. But at the same time, I was like, it sounds sad at the same time. But he didn't realize it. And so I broke down all of it. I was like, the gunshot, the crowd in the background. This sound came from this place and I used it for this. And he was just like, yo. So that track was mad fun to me. Mad fun.
Yeah, I remember I remember with that track, one, I was floored off top. The only thing that I gave back is at first that track had some Martin Luther King samples in it, and we weren't allowed to use them because I just knew that that's owned by the King Foundation, and so they would have pulled us real fast, and we like there's no way we would have gotten that sample cleared without a bunch of money, and I again we ain't got no money for that, and so I just knew we weren't going to be able to do that. And that was a little depressing because I knew how it sounded really, really incredible. And so we had to take some different routes. But I remember me and Aaron were talking about that track shortly after you had made it and he had heard it. And he was like, bro, that's some Kendrick stuff. Mm-hmm. When I heard that, I was like, yo, what? You made that? Like, that's crazy. He was floored. And I was like, I would constantly talk to Aaron about, it's like, this dude is getting better every single time he sends me a track. It was just, everything was evolving time after time after time after time. And that was just crazy. I think about, the keys on Johnson Street, bro. I'm telling you, those things just, and it, like, you'll,
I don't even remember the keys on that.
yo, it's like, because it comes out of like the Emmanuels, so it's like Emmanuel, like the whispers.
Oh, I do.
Then it goes,
yeah. I remember that. That's a joint with your I think isn't that the one with the covers and all that?
Yeah, that's the one with the covers. Yeah, that, like, the sonicscape of that. It starts off with the freaking alarm clock and everything. It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah,
that
I remember that.
That track messes with me because I remember, and that moment's really well because it's the stuff where it's like these are these really visceral moments for me, and to see visually and to hear sonically everything coming together, it rips me apart because this is my life, you know. And it's so significant for those who are still tuned in 2 hours into our journey.
Yeah, man.
So this whole project was recorded on the microphone that's behind me, right somewhere around here. I'm almost seeing it right there. That's the mic right there, which was given to me. I talked about this on another episode of Durag Thoughts, but it was given to me by my friend Matthew Newton, who died of leukemia over 2 years ago. It'll be close to 3 when y'all see this episode / hear this episode. And so that was a really significant part of this too. And just, you know, even going through the challenges of what I really think wasn't the mic, but was XLR cables that were just not good. That would cause certain issues and stuff within recording quality at certain times and things we had to work through. But it was one of those points that this record started gaining layers throughout time, because when this project was first envisioned and you were a part of it, Matthew was not dead. You know, we had talked and stuff, and I was trying to because at first I was trying to get someone else to record my vocals because I wanted it done the best possible way. And then there was just a bunch of stuff falling through with that, and it was taking too long. And so finally I was just like, Tay, I'm recording it myself. And then Matthew died. And I remember he was trying to give me that mic, and he was telling me, you need to send him demos. You need to record everything. You need to send him demos so he can start working on stuff, and then you can do final vocals. And I never did like demos and final vocals. It was all done at the same time. And yeah, I was trying to figure all that stuff out. but it was really kind of a big deal for me once we really started getting into stuff to use that mic for everything. And so yeah, layers just began stacking upon one another. And so when I started getting to these moments of these really, really solid pieces of music that really told the story, you know, when you really started adding in sonic elements that you would hear in those environments, when you started adding in the kit.
Hey.
How did that even come through?
Hey. I don't know. Hey.
When they started really kind of forming together to really illustrate moments, like when you started adding in sonic elements of the different spaces. So adding in the sounds of kids in a track like Calvin Phillips Drive, when I'm walking through the neighborhood, of things that you would hear there and rustling of leaves. Which that track also sounds so incredible. And the tension that you built in different spots sonically, and just all these different elements, man, they really, really started making this thing really feel cohesive as one body. Because at first I think if that's the way to sum it up, it's just in the beginning, our biggest challenge was sheesh. Our biggest challenge was
some of that coffee, man.
Bruh, I'm so sick of the cough. But the biggest challenge in the beginning was going from stuff feeling like two separate entities to it feeling like a singular unit. For it becoming just one whole work. And it did that. It feels so together. And I think this speaks to it beyond anything else. Is we had gotten to a point where our working relationship has gotten so synergized to where you know the type of stuff that I like and the stuff that I want and how to do it, in that you made the trailer music in one take. And it was that I gave you a couple of things I wanted, a couple of vocals that I wanted to be included, sent you the audio files for them, for the things that I needed you to put in, and the other stuff you had, and you did it one time, and I'm like, this is nuts. And that was it. It was like, we didn't need to do anything else. It was just like, all right, that's done. There were a couple tracks that you sent the track, and I'm like, I don't see any change to this. Like you like once we got further in the process, especially when we started incorporating like the East Atlanta love letters and stuff like that as inspiration points, you just kind of went with those. But like I mean, City of God, the title track was one of those tracks too. For the most part, I mean, you did 2 or 3 iterations of that, but
because those keys at the end, you were like, nah, let's take those out.
Well, yeah, because like the first one you did was like, yo, this is so close. And then you did one where you added a bunch of different keys layers. And I'm like, I like the first way because it kind of like went down, and then you went back and changed the keys to it like kind of slowing down and going out, which felt really, really good. But you also added like, I don't know if you added more African drums or those were just the ones that were there, because I wanted it to build more, and then when you tried to make it build more, it didn't sound right, and I was like, just leave it alone.
Yeah, I don't think I didn't add more. I restructured it, and funny enough, I took some away. I took some drums away because it was like there was too much going on, to the point where you couldn't even hear like what was already there.
Keep going.
It was just because it was like all quiet and little. And
I told you, they're the wimpiest little coughs out, bruh.
No, I took a lot of weight when it came to the drums, because some of it you couldn't even tell that it was like it was moving. So funny enough, it was like I didn't really add much to it. You know, I did like reduction more of anything. You know, when it got towards the end, because you was like, I want to feel this, I want this to be movement. So it was like structure and reduction was like a lot of what I did.
So reflecting, this is the last thing we'll kind of hone in on, because we're over 2 hours right now. This is of the longest ones. Well, I'm not totally sure for over 2 hours, because we did take that intermission at one point, but we'll see.
I'm at 1 hour and 32, not counting the break.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely further than that. I mean, I'm
because you've been recording. That's why.
Nah, but I only had 14 minutes when we started. So,
For real?
Yeah, because my joint says 3:23, which means it started on hour 1, so it's at 2 hours and 23 minutes, which would mean that it's really at 1 hour.
Never mind. I'm way past an hour and something. My math was wrong.
Okay, cool. But anyways, so when it comes to the project as a whole, reflecting on it now, like, is this like I there's part of me that wants to ask, would you do another project like this in your life, or is this a one and done? I ain't doing no other type of project where I'm doing music after someone lays vocals for something. And what do you think is the biggest thing that you learned throughout this process?
The first one, no, I wouldn't do a project like this ever again. Period. Not at all. No, I'm kidding. I ain't doing nothing like this,
bruh. And any person who's listening to this, it's like, I want a project just like this. I need this TaeeTheProducer guy. Is like gutted.
Yeah, no, y'all ain't getting nothing. Don't even call me. Don't look at me. Don't email me. Don't do nothing. You ain't getting. Nah, I'm kidding. In all honesty, I definitely would, but I would want to do it bigger and better, in terms of like music, bigger and better. I definitely would. But if I were to do it, because in my head I'm like, I want to, like, a lot of the strings in this are like like they're some of my favorite parts, but I'm like, I know some people that could do it way better. If I were to do it, I would do it 10 times better than what I got. I would definitely do it again. Definitely do it again. Even if I had to do it with somebody, they were recording the vocal to me and then sending it to me. Yeah. As long as I could tell them how to set it up. If I could give them a blueprint of how they should record throughout the entire thing and they don't change it, of course.
Yeah, of course. On this note, before you answer number 2, I think about this work and I'm just like, this work in the same room, the process speeds up a lot, and it would be interesting to have a studio dynamic for this. But I also think there would need to be times where like you have space where it's like not someone looking over your shoulder and stuff. Yeah. But like to be able to be in a room when it's like the engineer process of like laying vocals, I feel like that's a different vibe. I also don't think there are a lot of people who are laying vocals first and then having someone come behind and make music to it. Kendrick said, I've listened to interviews where people have asked Kendrick if he's done that before, and I think he's only done it a handful of times. Who knows what he's done with this new project? Like, apparently he's supposed to be out already, which maybe by the time that this comes out for people, he'll have been out. But when he was talking to Keem in that interview they did, for whatever cover that was, they said Keem said, you were supposed to be out by now, I was supposed to be out by now, but the pandemic shot their timelines back. Anyways, so the second question, I can't even remember what I asked you. What did I ask you for the second question?
I guess what was...
what's the biggest thing you learned?
Yeah. Whew, that's a tough one.
Or what's one of the things that you learned? It doesn't have to be the biggest.
Okay, I was about to say, So I'll have to say that one of the biggest things I've learned from this project would have to be maybe continuity. Had to be the one thing I learned the most of from this project. Just to see a nah. I definitely would say like continuity. Like this project taught me a whole lot about this project taught me a lot about continuity, and it forced me to listen to how projects move as a whole, and how like themes like develop, sounds develop, but they sounds are different, but they still sound the same, if that makes sense. Like I had to go back and listen to projects like the one that keeps popping in my head is Care for Me by Saba. That track, when I listen to it, reminds me very vividly of where I used to live. I used to live in Alexandria. When I used to commute from Alexandria to DC, I was in deep Alexandria. Now where Foxes come out at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and they just screaming at a little black boy in a white neighborhood. They just see me in there. It's like, hey, and I'm like, oh, I'm going back in the house. I'm catching me a $35 Uber. Forget that. But I remember listening to that track or listening to that project from waking up. I'm getting ready. I'm throwing on my tunes on my headphones, and I'm either on the bike or I'm catching the bus to the metro, like to the train station, and then going from there. And I noticed after, you gave me your critique for certain parts of the project, and you would remind me to go back and listen to this or listen to that. And each time I would get something different. But one thing that I found that stood out that I would say is one of the biggest things I learned from this project was all of them had a sound. They had like a family, if that makes sense. Everything sounded like there were different sounds, which made the listener go through like a roller coaster of emotions and sounds, but they all belong to the same family. And it took me a while to realize how to do that with COG, because it was like I didn't get it. It wasn't clicking for me then. I thought it was just like, okay, well, I'm gonna put it all on the same thing and it all sound the same that way. But it was like, no, these sounds have to feel the same, and they also have to flow into each other seamlessly. And that's where that continuity comes in, where it was like those interludes. And it took me a long time too to even like fully grasp your idea of the project, especially when you started talking about interludes. I couldn't wrap my head around that. Even now, like as I'm like working on like mastering and trying to understand it, that's one of the biggest things that's like got me at like a standstill, where I'm just like, how the heck do I like, I mean, now I'm learning more about it, but I'm still having moments where I'm like, how the heck do I make sure that this translates across all like platforms and that it stays exactly the same from Spotify to Apple Music to wherever else is going to be like premiered at. But I wouldn't think about any of this before this project. Before this project, it was like, okay, the song starts at 00 and it ends at 3 minutes 40 seconds, 3 minutes 50 seconds, or whatever, or 4 minutes, and I'm done. I wouldn't think about spacing between tracks, and here and there I was, but not on this level, nowhere near this level. So I'll say that's one of the biggest things I got from this, was just how tracks move amongst each other, how an album feels, the distinction between an album versus a mixtape, and all these different things, the thought process that goes behind an album, and just how it all flows together. It feels like a project rather than just a bunch of songs you just threw together. So that's one of the biggest things I learned from it.
Yeah, I think that's really good insight. Shout out Andy Mineo for his project, The Arrow.
Yeah.
He did The Arrow and the Sword, 2 chapters. I thought he was gonna do more. Maybe he will. But The Arrow rocked me. you know. That came out over 2 years ago because I sent that project to Matthew before he died. Yeah, because I sent that project to Matthew before he died, and I said, because Matthew and Brittany were going through a deconstruction like kind of period of their lives in terms of Christianity, really questioning a lot. And Matthew was going through it and really reading stuff and really trying to figure out what he believed. And Andy's really in that place in that project. And I sent that project to them. And I said, this really feels like where y'all have been. And so they actually listened to that project together before Matthew died. So he got to hear the arrow. And the arrow was crazy because everything flowed together. It went from one room to the next. It wasn't discontinuous, yet the sounds were very different. Clarity sounds way different than I Ain't Done. But they still seem in the family. Like, it is like a color palette is what I was thinking as you were talking. When you're creating a body of work, you create the palette for it. And again, I've talked about My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy being a big inspiration for me with this record and making it deeper. It's over here sitting on my record shelf. And if I'm going to pull out the vinyl real fast so that people can see it who are watching. Sorry, people who are just listening, but I'm pulling out My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy and pushing on my keyboard again. Breaking the fourth wall. So people who have not seen this, Tay, you haven't seen this record probably.
No, that's really hard. I ain't seen it.
It's pretty nuts. So I'm gonna pull this one out first, so just so that you can see this. So this isn't right side up, but as you can tell, if you can see that, it's got the picture in the center, right? And so if you remember this album, that's probably not the cover that you remember. Well, the reality is this might be the cover you remember. Which is it's a blurred out pixelated photo of basically Kanye with a white woman. Or maybe it's this, right? The Kanye with a sword in his head. This used to be his Twitter profile for a while. Or maybe it's the ballerina woman. So these paintings are crazy too. I gotta figure out who the painter was for this. But so these are all different visually, right? But they're all in the same palette. Like, they're all in the same situation. And even this joint, you've probably never seen this one.
That's hard though.
Multiple head Kanye situation. And so you stick these in the cover. And I put it up upside down. Hold on. I'm gonna get this right. One time for the one times. One time for your mind. Let's go to sleep in Paris, wake up in Tokyo. Shout out Lupe Fiasco. Probably the dude who taught me about concepts first. So now it's right side up. So nigga with the dog on his head. And so it's got these different color palettes, or it's got like the same kind of family of stuff, but it in like same style, but it's telling the story from these different angles. And then, you know, the inside is just super ornate. I mean, it's a triple kind of gatefold situation, with really, really ornate lettering. And then it also comes with this like big old poster of Ye, and that same girl. So it's like you get the bearded or the mustache lady, and then you get Ye in in a tux with like all the track listing credits.
That boy
and stuff.
clean. That boy clean right there.
Yeah, it's this vinyl is a crazy package. My favorite record of all time, but again, still not listening to Ye because he tripping right now.
Oh man, you missing out, bro. I'm just gonna tell you.
I mean, gotta stand on this for the moment, but his trumping ain't for me. I can't help with that. I appreciate that he loved the Lord and stuff, but he also rocking with some individuals that I ain't messing with. Dude was tripping a little. He's tripping a little bit. He needs to stop tripping.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so that's all set. Like all that to say, like it sits in the same kind of family. Like you pick a palette, you pick a style, and then you kind of rock with that. And sometimes like you might want to go a bunch of different directions, but those directions don't particularly fit the body of work. So that's how you see like artists at times like saying this record's tight, but it doesn't really fit the body of work and it gets thrown out. Like Kendrick with To Pimp a Butterfly. Untitled Unmastered had a bunch of tracks that were potentially for T-Pad, but they just didn't fit. And so levitate, like, you know, people love that track, but that track didn't fit To Pimp a Butterfly at all. And so, you know, it's that sort of thing. And for me, I think in bodies of work, I don't ever really want to I make one-off stuff, but I'm not out here trying to make like a bunch of singles. That's not really my vibe. And that's how a lot of people treat producers, because a lot of people in hip hop right now in general, in music in general, they're not really thinking about cohesive bodies of work as much. It's like trying to get that track to pop on TikTok, trying to get that track to pop on SoundCloud, trying to get that track to pop on Reels or whatever it is, so that they can get the notoriety. And so it's figuring out where stuff kind of meshes. But all in all, man, I appreciate you for taking on this beast of a project, to seeing it through, to doing it with excellency. And I'll leave this time open for you to plug your pluggables, as people say, to put people on to what you got, where to follow you, and how to support your work, how to hire you, this, that, and third. Floor is yours.
I first have to thank God for, you know, blessing me with the opportunity.
No, it's the Lord Jesus Christ. The Lord Jesus Christ.
I have to thank our Father, Lord Jesus Christ, who is Lord, just for blessing us with the opportunity to come together in communion to make this project a reality. Also, for all the viewers who are listening here, if you could be so kind just to follow me on the socials. So Instagram, my name there is TaeeTheProducer, TaeeTheProducer. Again, it is TaeeTheProducer. My socials are pretty much the same across all the platforms. TAEE. Oh, he laughing. TAEE.
These niggas ain't gonna follow you because it's gonna take them 45 seconds to hear the information.
TAEE, the producer, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I think I'm Tayshawn Jackson on there, but don't nobody use Facebook for real, except like old people. But Instagram and Twitter is where you can find me.
SoundCloud.
If anybody, SoundCloud, TAEE, the producer. If anybody want any type of work when it comes to that, just, you know, shoot me a message. Let's talk. Shoot me a DM. You can shoot me an email. You can go through Trevor, or you can go through my SoundCloud. And we could chop it up there, see what you're working with, what your story is, and I'll do my best to help you tell it. Stay tuned for
But
some
if
more
you ain't
work.
speaking that Guapanese,
Oh yeah, I mean,
you ain't speaking that language.
I mean, you know,
You gotta
let me
come
just
with
let people also know this: ain't nothing free.
For real, for real.
I ain't giving Nathan away for free.
You gotta.
I'll tell you a story the best I can, but at a fee.
Exactly. Well,
You know.
you go and pay what you owe.
But yeah, you can find me through all those places. Feel free to hit me up just to chop it up. If you want to talk about the record of COG, for sure hit me up. And especially any new producers or engineers or aspiring engineers, people that just want to get into music, hit me up. You got any questions about anything music related? I do my best to help you out. And maybe in the coming future, I'll start to explain my process on the tube of you, so people can just vibe out and see what's going on. You know, I found out a lot of ways to do stuff just from trial and error, and a lot of shortcuts I took between things, you know, to find out something, and it works. I'm here now, you know, by the grace of God. But if I can show you and help you along your journey, let's get it popping. So yeah.
Yeah, Kai. Well, that was Tayshawn's latest symphony, as Kanye West would say. Kanye says, "See, I just gave you a symphony."
Yeah, I just gave you some art.
When it comes to him talking, he says, "See, I just gave you a symphony right there."
Yeah, that was art. That was art we just did right there, man. So.
But yeah, follow him on SoundCloud, Instagram, Twitter, TaeeTheProducer. Hit him up if you need any work, producers and all that. The producer. And yeah, appreciate y'all watching this episode of Durag Thoughts. And make sure, if you have not even peeked into COG, you ain't watched all the videos, you haven't journeyed through it. One, I don't know why you listened to this whole episode if you ain't even seen the project, trying to turn the last page of the book before the book is, you know, even started reading. But guess what? We ain't even give spoilers like that. There's these tugboat niggas still blasting this tugboat at, what time is it? Midnight? It's after midnight.
12:30, yeah.
I don't know why these niggas is blasting this. We ain't gonna tell you where I am because I don't trust y'all like that. Sorry. But hit us with a like, subscribe, notification bell situation, so you can stay up to date with all this popping with COG, all this popping with this, all the projects and works I do on YouTube. Next time I drop a video, all them things. I'll catch y'all on the flip. Be easy, be safe. Peace.